Hey everyone, I'm Lily and I'm here with my boss Kate Drummond. So I'm making this video because I took one of her Auric Light Alchemy energy healing classes and it kind of opened my eyes to a whole other world that I didn't really know existed. And I have a lot of questions. I want to know what it is, where it came from, what it's made of, and what it's most useful for. So I decided to make this video because I kind of want to bring you guys along and see if maybe anyone else is interested. Um, it's an energy healing modality, very similar to Reiki, but very different at the same time. There are a bunch of different frequency or healing energies that you can pull from in a card deck. And so it's kind of different from Reiki in that way. Um, Also, the frequencies feel different and they can be specifically used for certain situations. Um, Personally, in my experience, I've found it really useful for my work with animals and energy healing, any kind of like emotional dysregulation or even physical dysregulation within the body. I've tried it on my family, um, my animals, my friends, and even though these people are skeptics, they say they feel something. And I think that we should dive into that and maybe explore what is that? What are we doing? Because you're doing it with your hands, with your intention. It's quantum. It's something that you're feeling and you're holding the feeling and you're transmuting it and giving it to other people. So
And yourself.
and yourself, yeah. So you kind of hold it at a frequency and then you give it. Um, Yeah, so that's pretty much all I know about it, and I want to know more because I'm a huge psychology and neuroscience nerd. I want to understand the foundation of our reality and how we can best heal people, and I think that this is pretty close to what I've been looking for. So, if there's anyone else out there like me who is interested in somatic healing or releasing trauma within the body and connecting with your authentic selves, I think this is a really great tool. So,
Yeah, and you don't have to be an energy practitioner. You could have a
true.
normal 9 to 5 job. You could just be a parent and want to share this with your children or yourself, or just bring in layers. I know people who have gone through the trainings that are business owners and they use it on their business development. So you can actually use it for self-healing as well. I mean, the opportunities and the applications are literally infinite, and I don't even know all of them. I'm still learning them all the time, new ways to apply this, new ways to learn this, and it's fascinating because the frequencies keep teaching me more about themselves years later. And then other people, as they become practitioners and learn to work with it, they also tell me new ways that I didn't know. So
Yeah.
that's the best part.
So should we show people the deck? And
Yeah,
maybe
and just to clarify too, with the deck didn't actually come first. The deck came as I was working with doing trainings for people, and then I decided I wanted to have a user-friendly kind of guide to it. And then from there, I realized, well, there's many ways that you can engage with this body of frequencies. So this is the card deck, and it comes with a little book that has some explanation on what these are. This is not like tarot, so it's not like a divination tool per se. Although if you're feeling something and you draw a card, it might show you something that can support you. There's no cards here that would indicate that you're going through like directly a hard time. These are all supporting and loving cards. The frequencies are all shown in these two-dimensional symbols. So they're just all different ones that have different meanings, different applications. And I think it would be fun to do a little card pull, and then when we do the pull, I can actually share the frequency with you. And whether you're watching this, we've encoded this recording to so that if no matter when you're watching this, where you are in the world, or if you're watching this many years from the recording date, it doesn't matter. The recording is encoded, so you'll still receive the benefit of the frequency. Sound good?
Cool. So, what are the frequencies made out of then, if you can receive it through a camera?
Well, they're quantum frequencies, and they're made out of, the frequency is a light frequency. I like to also use sound, so like tuning forks or bells or bowls to share the frequency, or sometimes just my voice as well when I'm using it as a practitioner. But when you're just working with the deck or looking at the cards, they're like holograms, right? So they're actually way more multi-dimensional than just a flat 2D image. Holograms sort of have the ability to heal the whole of the body, but also the whole, everybody, humanity.
Oh,
Right.
So like a collective consciousness.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So the more of us that are working with and using these frequencies and sending them and intending them, the more the collective gets the healing as well as us individually. There's no bad card, quote unquote. There's no way that these frequencies can be used for harm in any way. So they're
That's
all.
a relief.
Yeah, it is a relief. And you can't really mess it up.
Yeah.
You can't mess it up.
That's nice.
For all those perfectionists out there.
Yeah.
Right? You can't mess it up.
Because sometimes I wonder when I'm doing it, I'm like, am I doing it wrong? Or how do I know when it's activated in me? And it's nice to know that I can't mess it up.
Can't mess it up. So the frequency that I have pulled for us collectively today is the timeline shift. Ooh, this is a good one. This is a level 3 frequency, meaning all of these frequencies, they're broken up into 4 levels. One level is not hierarchical. They're not hierarchical. It just, they build on each other though. So this one is all about the highest timeline. So for this one, I'm going to share this frequency. I would invite you all to just put your hand on your heart and imagine yourself just maybe suspended or floating in the cosmos. Your hand on your heart, and take some deep breaths into your heart. And then what I'm going to invite you to do is just imagine or intend that the highest or the most healed, the most vital version of you appears. Let's call it your future self. And then through this frequency, we're going to use this timeline shift to sort of optimize the highest timeline for you as you imagine drawing that part of you back home into yourself. This fully healed version of you. We're calling upon the highest timeline to be activated. Also, as I see people, I'm clairvoyant, so I know people to have these unique geometrical expressions, right? And when we're in the flow and when we're in a higher vibration, those geometrical expressions are optimized, okay? So this frequency can help to call on your highest geometrical expression. I'm just going to send it out. I'm radiating it out through my heart, through my hands, that you may be blessed with your highest timeline, your highest expression. Nice deep breath to anchor that in, anchor that version of you in. And then you can just open your eyes and notice if you're sensing any kind of subtle shift in your body.
I feel like the way present and yeah, not as
Scattered.
yeah.
Wonderful.
That's nice.
Good. This is a very powerful one. It's one of the
Okay.
activators. Yeah.
Wow.
Meaning it can be used with other frequencies.
That's cool. Like, what are because all of these symbols, they have different shapes within them, and some of them are geometric and some are organic, and I'm just kind of curious, like, how did that come out?
When I receive symbols, I just, sometimes I get a visual impression in my head and then I'm doing it. Sometimes I just, as I'm doing it, I sort of receive direction in real time, what to do and how to do it and how many marks there are. And it's as I'm going, and then if I'm going and they'll say, no, that's complete. That's it. And I've honored what I was shown. I never tried to modify what I was given, even if I didn't like the way it looked. Because there are some of the frequencies that I like the way they look, and others that I didn't resonate with. But I think it's interesting because over time, some of the symbols in here that I didn't like as much as others, now I'm like really liking. So I don't know if it just my body wasn't ready for it then, or I wasn't, but it's nothing to judge. That's the thing. I mean, yourself about, in other words, right? And even if you don't like the way a symbol looks, it will still help you. So you can continue to work with it. They all have such loving meanings.
So if you really like the way a certain symbol looks, then do you think maybe you need that?
Yes, I wonder about that. Yeah, I do believe that.
Because there's some that I just really love.
Yes.
And it's the green and the purple ones.
I didn't get them with a color initially.
Oh, cool.
They didn't. So even though there are colors on these cards, they're not totally tied to them. So it's interesting. People have asked me about that.
How do you know what color goes with what?
When I was creating the deck, I was channeling what color to put with it.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Yeah, but they were all just black and white images. When I got them in my mind, they were just on paper.
So were you feeling them? Like you just felt like it needed to be there? Or were you looking at it and then copying what you saw?
I was probably feeling it more, although sometimes I would get like a flash impression.
Cool. Do you hear them?
I don't know that I hear them as much as I feel them.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
And as much as I just know them now.
Because they're very distinct. All of them feel very different.
Yeah. Well, they all have different, but they're all part of a greater whole.
What is the whole?
All of the auric light alchemy symbols.
So are they on a wheel? Or?
I wouldn't say that, but I don't know. I think how I've experienced it is I know that they're all, it's almost like, and other practitioners have said this to me as well. They've said, it just seems like they're all part of something, like one big symbol.
Is it that symbol? The one on the front?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think this is part of the bigger symbol. I think it's all part of a bigger, I don't fully always understand what I'm given. And this is a challenge for me because my background is also in the medical field and in science. So it's been such an interesting journey for me, stepping into this work.
Well, I guess what's good about that is that, at least from what I know about the spiritual world and my own experiences, that your consent is everything, and the energy that you allow within you is all that you can receive. So because you set the intention that it's for the highest good of all and harm to none, and it can do no harm,
yes,
you can trust that what you're receiving is good and not harming you or not tricking you in any way.
Right, and if you're not interested in it, then that's okay. it's not a forced situation.
Yeah, true. But
So you can
yeah.
just not, or yeah, it's all about, I think that's a great point that you bring up, because I feel like this is a series of frequencies and vibrations, and if to engage with it, your consent is needed, and I say that, and then we can, in this body of work, put healing pods around people that quote unquote didn't ask for it. So if I'm at Target or Kroger and I decide I want to put a healing pod around Kroger and fill it with certain frequencies, the frequencies sit in the container, and anybody whose higher self or higher part of their soul wants to engage with it can. It's not force fed on anybody. I'm very careful with that.
Yeah.
Because I really do hugely support and recognize free will. So in a larger container, if I'm flowing these frequencies, the idea is that people's higher self will connect with it and receive it if they choose to. But it's a choice.
Do you want to show the healing pod?
Yeah, it's really fun.
This is, my animals love this one. They go crazy.
This is kind of a container. It's a little bit of a different one from all the others, but it's a little bit more of a container.
It's like, it feels kind of like childlike joy, and it's kind of like you feel safe to go to sleep. So when I give it to my dogs, they go from feeling very unsafe, they need attention, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm safe, I can go to sleep.
Oh.
And even my mom, I gave it to her, and she's like, oh, it's great before bed, so I'll just go right into a deep sleep.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So again, the applications for this are just literally endless. And I should say that when you're working with the card deck, it's a little bit different than if you have the attunement, right? So if you're working with the card deck and you purchase the card deck and you're just reading through the oracle, or you're reading through the booklet, there's application for that. You can meditate with it. You can visualize it. You can there's lots of prompts in the booklet of how to kind of work with it. And I'm also in the process of writing a book that will be more robust to talk to how to work with this more in depth than this. But when you receive, these aren't anything, like if you wanted to do a card pull for a friend, like who's going through a hard time, you could pull a card and show them, text them whatever card came up, right? Like inner bliss. Let's do another infinite wisdom. Really nice. So that's all appropriate and fine. But when you do the level one, like if you choose to do a little deeper engagement with this, if it's very resonant for you, then you're able to literally share the frequencies in an embodied way with other people. Not just, oh, here's a little card and this is what it means. You can look at the card and get the healing frequency, but it's a little bit of a deeper embodied, you become attuned to these frequencies. So you receive them in the body, they get anchored in, and then they're alive within you so that you can share them at will.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I know you also said in the training that you can draw them to receive them. Is that so you can connect what you're seeing with what you're feeling by drawing it?
I love drawing and art and incorporating this work and art because I've specialized in neurology and pediatrics, not as a doctor, but as a therapist. So I'm looking at stress responses, I'm looking at how the brain develops, I'm looking at how children with sensory processing issues and how we learn and all these things, right? So I know that when you draw something and when you work with it that way, it's just another level of engagement. You don't need to come to the level, any of the trainings to do that. You can simply work with the deck and draw images that you like, but it just helps, it strengthens your connection to it, if that makes sense.
That's nice, so it's accessible.
Yeah, it's accessible. You can create art with it. There's no, rule against that. Like if you would if you're liking one of these symbols and a lot that you're working with from the card deck and you wanted to draw something or create a piece of art for your altar, great. I know people who have had tattoos of different symbols on their body that they love, so there's just lots of different options.
So you can draw them to receive them, you can look at them to receive them, you can hold them and give them to receive them. Can you?
When you're attuned.
When
yes.
you're attuned, you can hold them. So let's say you're an energy healing practitioner who uses Reiki and you want to try this other modality, Oracle Alchemy. Could you walk us through what a typical session might look like or feel like?
Yeah, if you're if you are giving the frequencies to somebody, right? So the way that I have it set up, and again, just because this is the way I do it, there's other ways to do it, but a traditional, like if somebody were to come to me to receive what I call it as an energy activation or exchange and activation. So a person would lay on a massage table with their clothes on and blankets to their comfort, and then the way I do a session is I'll read a person's energy intuitively. I'll check in with their I read through the chakra system, and then I will depending on the person's intentions for the session, I would say, okay, I want to, we're going to bring in these frequencies from what I'm feeling, but also what the person's intending, like what they're struggling with. There's different frequencies that can help support different areas of a person's life. So I will share the frequencies. I sometimes do it through touch, but oftentimes I'm not using my hands directly to touch. I will use my hands off the body. Sometimes I'll use sound, the tuning forks or the singing bowls or the gong to share the frequencies. So I'll run it like that. So usually when people experience the frequencies, they may feel tingling or a temperature change. They might see color. I've had several people that begin to see things when I'm starting to use this work with them. Sometimes they're naturally clairvoyant, but other times this might be a developing skill. That's different than how another practitioner might use it. Like I have friends who are sound facilitators that will use it strictly through sound. Or I have people that are just homemakers that will put all the frequencies in their food when they're cooking or baking. Or people who run different businesses who will put healing pods around their crews or around their staff, or will literally run different frequencies on their schedule. So on their schedule, they'll use very specific frequencies. So every day they run frequencies on their schedule to optimize it. There's so many ways that you could work with this. Yeah. Because I do it as somebody who shares energy. Now, when I'm working with the children that I work with for OT, for occupational therapy, I will do one of two things. I will ask the child directly. Sometimes I'll say, do you want me to share some energy with you? And if they say yes, I will. And if they say no, I will not. But we always have healing pods set up. I always have healing pods set up in the gym for the children to just like I would at Kroger or the post office, right? So who's ever open to receiving the frequencies can get them. Or if I feel like a child is really struggling but they don't want me to use the frequencies on them, or they've said no, what I will do is almost like put all those frequencies that I would use with that person in an imaginary box or a cube, and then again kind of offer it to them. I don't talk to them about this, like I'll just kind of energetically do it, and if they want to pick it up, they can. Their higher self.
That's cool.
So there's literally so many ways to do it. And it depends on what your area of work is, or your area, or how you want to use it in your life. I've gone to the beach and drawn the symbols in the sand every time I go to the beach. Or if I'm hiking, I might like arrange little stones, when I'm resting. in a symbol shape. There's so many ways to use
That's so
this.
fun.
It gets really creative. That's what I love about it, is the creativity is really, really fun with this modality.
So, what kind of, do you have any fun client stories? Like, what are some typical shifts or not typical shifts or transformations you've seen from people who have used this energy work or have benefited from it?
Oh, so many, so many. I've seen everything from people coming in to work with me over periods of time, having profound life transformation. I mean, like incredible. Everything from um, leaving toxic patterns behind, stepping into sobriety if that's something that needed to be, and changing jobs, leaving relationships that don't suit them, just feeling far more empowered in their life, feeling well, feeling more connected to themselves. I've had experiences literally of people experiencing a Kundalini awakening on a table during a session. I mean, it's so inspiring. I've seen children talk about the energy and feel the energy when I'm working with them. Um, it's really neat to see the children, kind of experience it, or the teens or the adolescents that kind of get curious about feeling it.
What do they do?
They just get really excited because they can feel it.
Oh.
They feel it. And the kids know, if they do choose to receive it directly, if I'm working with a child and I ask them, they will sometimes tell me, oh, yeah, I feel it. Oh, it feels warm. And I'll ask them to describe if they see a color, if they feel it. They just, yeah, they all really respond. People generally respond very positively to it. The ones who choose it. Yeah, it's really nice. And sometimes, like, it's fun because with the kids, we'll just have coloring pages of the symbols, so with no words, and the kids will just pick out the ones that they like, and they get really into it, and they want to color it in. And again, we don't share with them like what it means or anything like that. They can just receive it as they receive it.
I'll share from my own personal experience of giving the golden light healing frequency, which is part of the level 1 training. When I first got attuned to it, I was so eager to try it on everyone. I was like experimenting with it, really wanted to see how it could work because I can feel the shift in my body, but giving it to someone else, I want to see if they can feel that too. I want to make sure it's not placebo, and so I started with my dog, Wild. I have a picture, it's so cute. I was drawing the cards that morning, just laying them out on my bed, and he jumps up on the bed and puts his nose square on the symbol, and he looks up at me, and he's just like, "Are you gonna give it to me?" So he's kind of addicted to it, I'm not gonna lie. He needs the healing pod. He has a lot of needs for attention, and he can be kind of aggressive with other animals. So he loves this one. He also has hip pain. This helps him a lot with his hip pain. This one seems to be really helpful for people with their physical pain. I use it on my mom. She has Lyme disease, so she has problems with the left side of her body with nerve pain, and that's years and years and years of trauma and stress and inflammation built up in her body. So it's not going to be healed in one session, obviously, but when I do it on her, she says she feels better. She'll be like, wow, I actually feel pretty good right now. Or I'll sleep better that night because she'll wake up in the middle of the night from not being able to sleep. So she loves it when I do it on her. Beautiful. And when I'm facilitating it, I'm like burping. And she's laughing and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're making me burp so much. I'm like, I'm just feeling a lot. I feel, because I've never been attuned to any kind of energy healing, even though I've wanted to. I just never really had the opportunity in college. So when I get to give this frequency to people, I can feel where they need to be balanced, and then I'm just drawn there. And it's just a feeling. It's so cool. It's like a different sense. And I know where energy needs to flow. I can feel where blocks are. And the frequency just kind of helps with the transmission of that.
Yeah.
I did it on my aunt, who she had shoulder surgery in her 20s. And one day she was just like, oh, the weather changed, it's really sore, it hurts, I can't move anything. And so I did it on her. She's a total skeptic. She was like, she's an anesthesiologist, very science brain. And I was doing it on her because she was desperate. And she was like, wow, gone, completely gone. Her pain gone. I don't know. I don't think it came back, but
wow.
I texted her a few days later. I was like, how's your shoulder pain? She's like, hasn't come back since.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's beautiful.
Oh, and I do it on my horses too. I live on a horse farm, so sometimes there's horses that are just, they're babies. They're very empathetic and sensitive creatures. Their energy biofield
It's giant.
It's 30 feet. So
Yeah.
with humans, it's only about 6 feet, but with horses, it's 30 feet. So they're very sensitive, and they're prey animals. So I'll give it to them if they're in the pasture at night, and it helps them calm down if they're like stressed out or anything. Yeah.
It's so great, I mean, there's so many, again, ways to use it. That's the brilliance of it, I think. And it's just, I use it with my kids. I'll, like, as you would pray for people, right? Before I go to bed, I'll set pods around my children, or in the morning as I'm meditating. I will send them frequency if they're going in. People, I've sent frequency into the surgery room, so like when my parents or anybody that I know, loved ones, are having procedures done, I'll send that. It's just so empowering. It feels like you're being actively supporting, it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, it does. You feel it. It's really nice because I'm such a thinker. I've been a thinker my whole life. I've kind of been like, feelings are stupid and they're not logical, so I'm not going to feel. But this whole practice has gotten me more in touch with my feeling sense, which is really important if you're...
It's also good for the embodiment, right?
Yeah.
Like, so when it helps because they're anchored literally in our physical bodies, when we're attuned to them and when we're sharing with them, it's like it brings you into your body. And as we know, as we're learning, I've known for a long time as an OT, focusing on this, sensory integration with children and neurological performance, neurodevelopmental skills, that we know that people don't have good interoception, which is meaning, what is interoception? Is the ability to recognize your internal state. So whether that's hunger, the need to use the bathroom, your heart rate, it's just what we would call poor interoception. Many children have this, and that's linked to ASD or autism spectrum, right? It's linked to all sorts of, can be ADHD. So lots of different presentations have this poor interoception, and now we're learning that that is also true for trauma.
Yeah.
Which is why there's some now curiosity around how, and people are beginning to explore the similarities between ASD and trauma, autism spectrum and trauma. So it's all very fascinating, and I love this modality because it is such an embodying modality where you can really do, just by using the frequencies, you're healing yourself. So and that's just a double benefit. As you're using them and sharing them with others through your body, you're also healing yourself. So it's like a win-win.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that's wonderful about this. Yeah.
It's like, it's its own form of somatic therapy.
Right. That's a great way to look at it. I hadn't thought of it like that, but yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, that's how it feels.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I think now I kind of want to ask you about where this came from.
How did it all happen? That's a great question. It's a really Interesting story. It's fascinating. Um, so, um, I'll talk a little bit about my background just so people can know because I think it's relevant for this story. It's an interesting. As I was a very sensitive child myself, um, as a young child, undiagnosed, um, neurodiverse, from a very neurodiverse family, undiagnosed, back in those days. Um, I was just very, very sensitive. And I was not only sensitive to the sensory world and the external environment, but I was also very kind of sensitive. Like I could perceive things. I could see things. I would have imaginary friends. I was a sensitive kid. I would listen. I can remember being in my parents' den and playing records and talking and having these full conversations with these imaginary friends and experiencing them and seeing them and them talking through me. And it didn't always feel comfortable. I was scared a lot as a kid because I was so bombarded. And, my mother had very kind of mystical experiences within her belief system of the Catholic faith. And she was very drawn to the mysticism and all of that. So that's sort of, I did have that growing up, And then a father who was sort of, he had claimed himself as an atheist at some point in his life and then was a churchgoer, not mystical, I wouldn't say, but still rooted in that faith. So this is kind of what I was raised around, and as I was in my late teens rather, and I began to really explore lots of things, and of course when I was a child growing up, it was in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, so like the Ouija boards and everything were really popular, and we could levitate people. I think everybody was doing it around that time. And then if you can think about all the films that were out, like The Exorcist and all of these like really crazy, time, right? Nightmare on Elm Street, all that stuff, scary stuff. But I also started experiencing doing these seances. I would just start doing these experiences with friends, and then I became aware that I was actually right, and I was actually channeling, and I was actually seeing dead people and speaking to them, and they were delivering messages to loved ones of people of my peers. It was just with peers. This was a free, we would just do these meetings. But then I got really scared, and I just decided I didn't want to do that anymore, so I shut it down because I got scared. I was distracted. By this time I'm in college, closed everything off. And then when I sort of finished my studies, moved to Atlanta, and then met somebody and eventually got married and became a mother. And it was when I became a mother that I suddenly began to, it all just came back in, like I had blocked it out like a trauma. Now I would still have precognitive dreams of things that would happen, and I would have these intuitive hunches, and I knew all about that. I didn't lose that, but what I blocked was the ability to channel, was the ability to be in direct contact with spirit. I blocked all of that out. And when I remembered it, I felt electrified, like in a scared but also in an excited way. Like, wow, I used to be able to do this and I lost it. What? And I was very eager to return to this side of myself and to cultivate it. But I was scared because I didn't want to just jump in and start doing it again because I had been traumatized. I had been scared by what had happened. So I pursued, different trainings, and I actually began by linking in with people who were also in the allied health professions, who were doing this work in addition to their more traditional roles. And I was very inspired by them. I was always very conscientious about working with and training with people who I perceived to be in a grounded, quote unquote, real world job, or have some kind of an intellectual background, right? And were rooted in that, right? That felt good to me. And I actually like the people who question things a lot.
Yeah.
So I started following Paul Selig, who is an amazing channel, but very skeptical of himself, especially when I was following him in the earlier days. So I like that. I like that, like questioning the self and not just blind faith and, looking at things and feeling them out and having an intellectual mind and an inquisitive mind was important to me. So as I began to do these trainings and start to do these things, I had this aha moment. Like, what if all these little children, because I'm an OT at this time, I'm a parent, but I'm also have been in an OT practice for over a decade. And what if these little kids that I'm working with all these years with these sensory sensitivities are actually like me? That they're not just sensitive to the environment, they're hugely empathic.
Right, because you were a sensitive kid too.
I was that sensitive kid. So the wheels start turning, right? Like, wait a minute, what if this is just more than what and this is probably around 2011, I want to say 2010. This is the time frame around that I started questioning that. But at that time, I just felt like, I was like, oh my God, is anybody thinking about this? And I don't know that they were. Maybe they were, and I just wasn't aware of it. Probably they were, but they are now.
Yeah, they are now.
I think it's happening more now, but back then I don't know. And it's likely that there were people that I just wasn't aware of, but I couldn't. It wasn't as readily available as it is now.
Yeah,
right.
True.
Like now, it's like, what are we 15 years later almost? It's a different situation. So, so I began the training. I began exploring this, and then, as I'm beginning more and more training, I decided to do a Reiki certification because I noticed that the American OT Association was hosting at their annual conferences Reiki trainings, and that they were receiving this as a viable treatment modality, at least recognizing it. So I thought, well, this is my ticket in. I'm going to do something that my profession recognizes. This is a good scientist of an ethical, I wanted to play by the rules in that way. So I did my Reiki certification through mastership. I was doing several other types of training, including a shamanic immersion, including quantum work. And I became aware of this man by the name of Gene Ang, and he just ticked all the boxes for me. So when he started, his training, his background is in neuroscience and from a prestigious university from Yale. And then he also had shamanic background, and he was working with all these quantum methods. So I just thought, oh my God, this is my guy. This guy has what I need. So I started training with him, and it's like the first class that I took of him, he described, and now by this time, to backtrack a little bit, by around 2017, when I had done my Reiki mastership and I felt like I had really learned a lot and wanted to do more, I decided to open up the energetic heart. And when I opened up the energetic heart, I could then work with adults in a very robust way, in a very authentic way, in a very full way, versus sort of it being a tangential supplemental thing that I'm doing in the OT practice, right? I wanted to really explore this in a different way. So in 2017, I opened the energetic heart and started seeing clients. So now fast forward to about 2020, pandemics hit, 2021, I'm starting to work with Gene Ang. And when I took his first class, it was like this entire codex opened up inside of me that was already there, is the best way that I could describe it. It's like he was giving me what felt like a manual to the stuff that I had been doing intuitively and not understanding.
So what were you doing?
So when I would be in sessions with people, I would see symbols all the time. And I would see these symbols pouring into people. I didn't know what they were. I know I'm holding a loving frequency. I was trusting that it was good. I would just see these wild things would happen in my clairvoyance when I'm working with people.
Okay, so that's why you wanted a quantum practitioner.
So, right, well, in my very first training was with a quantum practitioner, and then I kind of went into the shamanic world, which is beautiful, and they're a little bit different. But what I love about it is that they work so beautifully together. You know, these very earth honoring practices is along with these cosmic, you know, kind of quantum practices. You know, I think that they're beautifully dovetailed, beautifully together. And it's like, it gives me the ability to pick and choose, almost like with the quantum stuff. And my very first teacher was in quantum, and they said, you don't need anything. All you need is your intention. And I love that. And then when I started doing the shamanic work, it was like all of a sudden we're drumming and we're using all these things and we're saging and we're using all these tools. And what I felt with that was that spoke to what I felt like was in my ancestral DNA. Like, I feel like we're people that need ritual, and we've abandoned ritual in our lives. We're in this modern lifetime, this modern life in this world, where we don't have these same rituals that we used to have. So I found solace in the rituals. So, but I also am not bound to them. I know, or the tools, I should say, right? So if I am somewhere and I feel like I need some support, if I don't have my, whatever it is, my crystal or my tuning fork or my singing bowl or my gong, I know that I can call upon the energy and frequency of that through my intention to what I need. So it's fun. I love all the tools. I love all that stuff because I feel connected to it. Yet I am also perfectly capable to operate with nothing. So I love that.
So
With the ALA, the GNA.
yes, so it's quantum.
It's quantum. So it unlocked the codes from this work that I was doing with GNA. And then as I'm working, and now this kind of does dovetail into the shamanic stuff, the story of this, because when I was in one of my first shamanic journeys before I studied with Jina, I was a self journey. I was taken up by a guide to this golden light source of energy, and that my guide took me up there, and I was just in awe. I was experiencing the most beautiful radiance of light, and my guide attuned me each chakra to this golden energy, and he imprinted what I now know is the eye of Horus into each of my chakras when he was attuning me, which now my guide in this particular journey was a Native American man. So I questioned that. My questioning mind is thinking, wait a minute, why is a Native American man attuning me with the eye of Horus, which is an Egyptian symbol that actually the eye of Horus represents the pineal gland in the brain, right? So he was kind of waking me up using this kind of frequency. I feel very connected to the Egyptian studies. And I always have. So that's very prevalent in this work, actually. So through this journey, I'm like, wow, this golden light. My guide told me I could use this frequency with my clients, and I said, okay, great. So I'm going right along. Now I'm using this golden frequency in my sessions.
And it's different from the Reiki.
Different from the Reiki.
Okay.
And then I work with Gene, and then pretty much sometime pretty soon after my first training with him, I was in a session, an adult session with an energy session with a client, and I hear my guide say, you need to attune this person to the golden light. And I thought,
is this the golden light?
I didn't have any of the symbols yet. It was just a golden energy that I was working with. There was no name, there was no ALA.
So is this it now?
This is what I know it to be now.
Okay.
It's the golden light, right? So, and I thought, okay, but I didn't have a symbol for, I didn't have any of this wording around it. I just knew it as the golden light. So I asked my client, would you like to be attuned to the golden light energy? And I'm thinking to myself in my mind, I don't know how to do this. And then I have these conversations with my guides that are very real. So I'll say, I remember thinking like, I don't know if I can do this right now on the spot. Like, you guys are going to have to give me a symbol so that I feel like I can attune this person. So they gave me some symbol for myself. And I thought, okay, they're like, here's your symbol.
Wait, so why a symbol?
I don't know because I feel so connected to symbols, and I understood their power.
Oh, okay.
So it's just like a symbol to me is like it's an activator. It contains this packed frequency, these packed energies, like all of these do. So I felt like I needed that because I didn't know what I was doing.
When did you learn this? That symbols have this energy?
I probably through the work with Gene, when I started working
Okay.
with him, that was like that codex unlocking in me because he would be talk about symbols and when you see symbols and this is what they are and this is what they contain and this is what's the potentiality of them.
Okay.
So that was part of that codex. I'm like, wow, because I'm seeing all these symbols, but now I kind of had a little bit more understanding of how they worked.
What do you mean when you said it was part of the codex?
So I believe that I believe that this is something that I meant to bring through in this lifetime.
Okay.
It was an invitation. So I think it was already inside of me. So when I had this experience, it unlocked this work to come through.
That's so cool. Do you think it's only in you, or do you think it's in other people?
Oh no, I think people, like this particular work,
Yeah, like this codex.
I don't know. I couldn't answer that.
That's fair.
I mean, I can tell you what I've experienced and what other people have told me. But I honestly can tell you, I'm not sure. But what's interesting about that question is that sometimes people see the symbols and they're like, oh my God, I've had many people tell me they've seen them before. And when I ask them, where have you seen them? In their own experience, one person reported seeing them after the towers, the World Trade Center was hit, 9/11. Saw one of the symbols.
Which one?
Galactic alignment. And another person told, and then it was a very like this has to happen for the whole evolution of the world.
So it was a destined event.
Yeah, I mean that's what that
for
would.
the timeline we were on.
I mean, you could guess. I don't know for sure. But
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
one could guess.
One could guess.
As a scientist, I'll say it. Sure, it's possible, right?
Yeah, there is no fact.
It's just all these possibilities. So,
yeah.
yeah. So, and then other people will tell me I've seen them in my dreams. So, I mean, possibly.
Cool.
So, yeah, but it's affirming to me,
Yeah.
right? It's an affirming thing for me to hear that. So, yeah, as I'm attuning this person to this golden light on the table, it happens again a second time that in the same week, my guides say, you need to attune this person. I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. Is this a thing? And then at the end of the session, my guide said to me, we're going to bring through a whole series of teachings through you. And yeah, that's what's going to happen. So I thought, okay, all right, I'm listening now. I hear you. I'm willing to receive this. I think I'm ready. Okay. And then when I meditated about like how this is going to roll out or when it was going to roll out, I got very specific directions, which were to go to Arabia Mountain, which is a granite mountain or hill or structure in outside of Atlanta to the east, connected to the Stone Mountain and Panola Mountain kind of lineage, I guess, or formations. And to go up to this mountain and to receive the codes or receive the transmissions or something like that for the symbols, for the work. And I thought, and they said over 8 days. And then I'm asking them, okay, at this time my children are, I have kids and partner, and I'm asking, okay, well, not like, can I go in the mornings to meditate instead of like spend the whole day? They said yes. Right. And so I told my husband that I was going to be doing this, and he was supportive, and I just would get up this is in May 2021. I got up very, very early in the morning and drove out to Stone or Arabia Mountain with my journal, my sunscreen, my backpack, and some water, right? And yeah, and some crystals probably, right? And I went out and I meditated, and I stayed on average for each of the 8 days about 2 to 3, maybe 2 to 4 hours, and would just get into this place of like, I was conscious, but it was almost like a trance. And then I was receiving the symbols this way, and they gave them to me in the correct order, which I tried to reorder later because I thought it was wrong, but then I realized, oh no, they were right. They gave them names and all the things. So, and then this is how quickly it came in. This is late May 2021. By August 8th, so Lionsgate 2021, I taught level 1, the first level 1, wow, to a group of 12 people that came, and I attuned them all to the level 1 frequencies. And I would sort of flesh out each level prior to it, but like I couldn't even write levels 2, 3, and 4 until I had been teaching the first level and then the second level and then so forth. So I had to experience them. I had the skeletal notes to each, and then I would have to sit with it and meditate and do more work. And then when I created the card deck, some of the names of some of the frequencies that I was given felt a little bit hard to understand or not relatable. For example, auric codex formation or auric pact energy transfer. Like that doesn't feel very relatable. Mm. So when I went to write the card deck, which is why you'll see in the card deck that there's 2 names. The bottom name is the name that I was given on the Arabia Mountain. And then the top name is more of like a common user-friendly name. And when I wrote the card deck, I went into channel, I wrote this book, it all came right through. There was 0 effort. I did it in like a day. And I designed the cards myself, and I found a printer and had them printed. And so then they began to accompany the trainings.
So who was helping you receive these frequencies? Was it the codex within you, so it was coming from your higher self, or was it coming from your guides?
It was coming, it's interesting, that's a great question. I think it was both. So, but my guides were definitely, there were 2 groups of beings that named themselves for this. And I was really, when I developed this, I really had, in my small self way, hoped that they wouldn't require me to name them because I felt very afraid to name who they were, but they named themselves because I was concerned at that time with my reputation.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the 2 groups that I was working with were the Arcturians, which is a galactic group, and this other group, and I just thought it would be with only the Arcturians, but there was another galactic group that named themselves the Council of Light. So those are the 2 groups that I'm sort of, that helped me bring this through. And it's interesting because I had one session with this woman who's a really gifted psychic, and she and I don't know her at all, and she doesn't know me or myself or anything like that. And I told her very little bit about, all I told her was my guides helped me, brought this modality through me, and I'm working with it or something like that. I didn't tell her the name of it. I didn't tell her anything else about it. And she named the Arcturian, she named the other group. She saw that it was golden, and she didn't know anything about anything. So it was, again, very affirming. And then when I was asking her, about, because I just assumed that I just got these directly from my guides and it wasn't my higher self. And she said, actually, in her perception of what she saw from me was that I co-created it with them before this lifetime. and that we created it together, and that it was my it was my mission to bring it through in this lifetime.
That's so cute. I don't know why that's cute to me, but it's cute.
So that's, and I understand how that might sound to people, and I just, and I'm aware of that. But I'm also like, I know that all of this work that I'm doing and that I'm putting out there, the solace for me is that this is all coming from a place of love. Mm-hmm. This is all coming from a place of activating other people to be in their own power. Mm-hmm. This is not about me becoming the guru or the only teacher that holds the key. No, these symbols and these codes activate the people that use them to whatever they need to achieve in their life, whether they're just receiving it in sessions, whether they're working with a card deck, whether they do the attunements. There's many different ways to engage with this.
I think that's so important to say that these frequencies you're not joining a cult. Like you're getting more aligned with your authentic self in whatever way that shows up. And
that's right.
Any way that you want to express is the way you want to express, and that's your truth, and like that's great. But
right, and free will.
Yeah, free will.
Free will.
It's nothing like you need to pray to this deity and get this thing. It's like no, just get more aligned with, feel more balanced in your energy. To me, it feels like balance.
Yeah,
it feels like everything's just getting more aligned. I don't know how to explain it, but as someone who is very sensitive to energy and I can really adapt to my environment, these frequencies have brought me to kind of a pillar of my own being. And that was very foreign to me. I didn't understand that you could have this like strong, energetic sense of self that isn't just molding to the environment around you. You can just be who you are. Mm-hmm. And so it releases a lot of guilt and shame about your authentic expression. And I think that's cool because it's not like I'm sitting here and I'm like, I need to make sure I'm the most golden light, pure, loving being. It's not like that. I was more concerned with that before I did the energy healing. I was more concerned with being some like perfect love and light creature. And then obviously there's a polarity that comes with that where your shadow gets suppressed and then it sneaks out, and then that aspect, if you like Carl Jung. So this frequency was more like, no, you're allowed to have your opinions, you're allowed to have discernment, you're allowed to stand in your truth and your power, and you're not a threat to anyone for being in your power. And it's not like I received this information as like a scripture,
privileged, or like some right.
It was a feeling. It was like, it felt like permission to be myself from myself, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's really just about empowering who's ever working with this for themselves. And I will say, like, there's zero pressure about any of this. Like, if you want to take, this sounds interesting, I want to do the attunements, because it's a 2-day class. It's pretty packed, and it's paced enough to have some integration breaks because the frequency is very high when we're in a class for 2 days. There's a lot of channeling, there's a lot of sound, there's a lot of room for like learning, and like the book, the right side of your brain, we do a lot of learning about how did you work with this, and what's the best application, and what are the appropriate situations. And then you get into the experiential side, the left brain, and the right brain, and then the left brain for the learning, and then the right brain, you're into this whole like expressive side, right? Mm-hmm. And it's this, that's where the channeling and the sound and the toning, and that's where the attunements come in. And then you're having your own experience with it, and you're journaling, and you're anchoring things in, and you're working with partners, and it's this beautiful, vulnerable space, but it's very high frequency. Yeah. So it's like 2 days of getting very high frequency, and then also you're learning something that you can work with.
It was really cool. It felt like I was unlocking things that were already within me. So, as I stated before, I'm very logical, very thinking oriented. I'm trying to critically think my way around everything. That's how I ended up here. It's a very weird route to get here, but I'm here. And as I'm going through this training for 2 days, I'm feeling like my hands are feeling energy. And I was like, oh my God. And it felt really safe and comfortable and very, very safe space. And we learned how to do automatic writing. So we would receive the frequencies and then sit up from our mats. And Kate was like, okay, just start writing anything that's coming. And that was just a new experience for me as well. But it was really interesting. It was like unlocking a feeling that was there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, really, this is all about just becoming your most authentic self, you know. And it's really, it's a really, I don't know, I just really love it. And like, if you decide to try a training, and like you want to do a level 1, you take a card deck class first, which is just kind of orient you to the whole deck. And that is a great opportunity to be like, really make your mind up. Like, so some people who hear about this, they're just like, oh, I'm in. This is for me. Other people are like, so if you're a little bit inquisitive, you could take the card deck class, which you can purchase. It's a self-paced recorded class on my website. And then if you need it, you'll need the card deck. So we don't yet have the store for the card deck up on the website. So if you are interested in getting the deck and playing around, they're $25 for the cloth bag. These boxes, we don't have very much inventory on them, they're little cedar boxes that are $44. So, but the cloth bags are $25, and they have all the symbols in them with a little booklet. You take the self-paced class, and from that point, it's like you'll know if it's right for you or not, right? So you can make the decision from that point on if you would like to continue with the training or to go deeper into level 1.
And so how do you purchase a deck if you are remote and you're not in Atlanta?
That's right. Just go to the website, www.theenergeticheart.com, and then you just go to the contact form, contact me or contact us, and just let me know that you're interested in a deck, and I can arrange that to be sent to you. If you're local in Atlanta, the Energetic Heart Studio is in Southeast Atlanta, just a little bit south of East Atlanta Village on Moreland. So you can arrange to pick one up if you'd prefer to do that. I can also ship in the Atlanta area. So there's lots of options. Yeah.
And you also have a full 2-day attunement training coming up soon
in
January. Right?
Yep, that's right. So if you're in Atlanta or would like to come to Atlanta, which is a great city, highly recommend it, and you want to do the training in person, that training is January the 11th and 12th. It's a Saturday and a Sunday from 10 to 6 p.m. And that's coming up soon, in just about a month, a little over a month. And then if that one doesn't work for you, or if you're not in the Atlanta area, you can take the remote class, which is coming up March 1st and 2nd. So March 1st and 2nd is the remote class for this level 1 training. And just if you're wondering about if it's going to be as effective or influential or whatever, COVID brought, one of the gifts of COVID was the ability to learn virtually and online, right? So I did a lot of trainings online that were like international trainings during COVID for energy, and including the Gene Ng classes, because he's in California. So I did online training with him. Very effective. You're going to get what you need, and absolutely appropriate. Yeah.
And so the level 1 includes the first 5 cards?
Yeah, let's look at the level 1 frequencies just to highlight them for everybody really quickly, just so you can get a sneak peek of what you'll be learning. Where's my other guy? Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, so first one here is the Pillar of Light. This kind of connects you to the earth and the cosmos, which is where we should, or the source energy or your higher self, This is a beautiful frequency. It clears and balances the chakras, very powerful. The second is this meditate for clarity, or what we call the 2 cups meditation, that is a beautiful energy receiving that you can get. This is a beautiful meditation that I do every day. Thirdly, we have this golden light frequency, which you guys have seen, which is the loving, gentle, beautiful frequency, good for everything. You cannot go wrong with this one. And then we get this awesome Divine Feminine, Isis, Mother of Egypt code. This is for mothering, the mother wound, magic. She was very involved in healing, working with the people, and in death ceremony and death ritual. So beautiful frequency, Divine Feminine, beautiful. And then finally is the healing pod. So this is kind of like a structure. And once you learned and become attuned to it, literally the possibilities are endless. So,
and if you want to experience these frequencies and also all the other frequencies that come in the deck, if you want Kate to give them to you through your computer, that's on the card deck class as well. Mm-hmm. So she'll talk a little bit about the frequencies, and then she'll give them to you and you'll feel them. I felt them.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's right. So in the card deck class, you'll get a full rundown of level 1, 2, 3, and 4. You'll feel the frequencies of each. We'll talk a little bit about the application and the meaning, and then it's I think it's a cool class. Yeah, yay. Self-paced. So
okay. So one last question.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite card?
Oh, do I have a favorite? Oh, it changes, I really, one of my favorites is that timeline shift that we did earlier, because that's just like optimizing the timelines. But it's interesting, when I first, I'm looking for it now again to just remind us all for the timeline shift. This is one of my favorites. Really beautiful. This is just like best case scenario card. This sums it up. Another one that I really love, and this is really in honor of the shadow, is this elevated expanded emotions, or the auric codex formation. This is not a bypassing card. It may sound like that from the name, but what this card does is it helps to integrate your shadow and works to transmute anything from the shadow that is not helping you into something usable or creating more space within the body. So we're not sending parts of ourselves out of us, right? The only thing in my energetic practice that I will release from the body is what does not belong to us. So it's energy of other people. That's the only thing, like other people, like, or from the media, from the news, or if you picked up some energy off somebody at the grocery store, from your kids, or of an argument or something. That's what I'm releasing, is the baggage, right? Anything that belongs to the person, I'm going to work with this frequency and transmute it within them. So I love this one. Love it. So that, and then, oh gosh, there's so many good ones, really. The one that I am really is the flavor of the time right now, and I've been really drawn to this one over the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 months, the unity. We're moving into unity consciousness, and like, I have partnered with these beautiful local artisans, Jenny and Karen, of a company called Fossil and Hide, and they literally made all of these symbols into medallions, and they are made to order, and I have the entire collection, and they can be purchased through, if you go to my Instagram page, which is just my handle is The Energetic Heart. If you go to the link tree, there's a link for the Fossil and Hide medallion collection. I've been wearing Unity for like several months. So, and I'm really feeling the need to continue to work with this, because this is what we're coming into. But it's through the polarity that we're going to get here. So that's the paradox, right?
Yeah.
This is also unity not only of the collective, but this is unity of yourself. Calling all those parts of you back home that need to come home. The parts that got left in the trauma, the parts that we left at the grocery store, that we had an argument, calling all those parts of myself back home. And then we're also connecting into the unified field from a place of wholeness. From a place of wholeness. So
I love that.
it's a level 4. It's a beautiful thing. Actually, this might be, yeah, this is a level 4.
Should we close out with that frequency?
Yeah, let's do it. That's a great idea. Thank you. Okay, so just get yourself in a comfortable position. And let's use it to call all the parts of us back home, back to your body, back to yourself. And we can even intend, I call all parts of myself back to me now. I'm calling back any of parts of myself that have been left behind, intentionally or unintentionally. And I welcome them back in the spirit of wholeness. So, along with the unity frequency, let's go ahead as we're calling all these parts back home. Let's fire up this elevated, expanded emotions frequency to transmute any of the heaviness or anything that needs to be transmuted from our experiences of calling these parts of us back in. Knowing that it's safe for us to arrive back at home. And once we have received ourselves in wholeness, we can then connect to the greater whole from a standpoint of wholeness. I'd like to offer a healing pod around these frequencies around the globe. Also adding in the timeline shift frequency, which is optimizing the outcome or optimizing the timeline. And it's my wish for us all to be fully whole, and through our wholeness to be able to connect to the collective whole. Know that we're connected and supported, and that we've got our highest timeline in mind, and the highest timeline for humanity in mind as well. So that is my wish for us all.
Thank you so much for answering all my questions and
You're so welcome.
filming this video with me and taking the time for that.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for so much for arranging this. It's my pleasure to talk about it, to spread the word and to share it with more people, so that the people who feel called in to this are welcome to join me and receive it. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for watching.
The end of the video. It's been long, so I appreciate it. And we'll leave links in the description below if you want to check out Kate and her website, both her occupational therapy practice and her energy healing studio and her card deck class. And if you want to sign up for Auric Light Alchemy Level 1, we got a few days, a few weeks.
Oh yeah, it's coming up in January 11th and 12th, and then the remote March 1st and 2nd.
So
hope to see you.
bye.
All right, bye-bye.